What's up guys, Nightingale here, and welcome back to another video. Today, I've recorded 2.5 hours of video. So I'm going in for the fatality on my vocal cords today. We're gonna go for number 3 for you guys. This will be a video that will get released tomorrow. Alright, so Guilty Gear is dropping tonight / tomorrow here. It is March 16th, 2022. And I know there's going to be a lot of people asking who to summon for. So that's kind of what this video is going to be about, is who to summon for. I'm going to talk about the units in a little more depth now that I'm not pressured because of time or anything like that. We're going to cover the units in this order and check out the timestamps below for each unit. We're going to talk about Dizzy, Baiken, Elphelt, Jacko, and Soul. Now, right now, I can show you 4 of the 5 units. Now, Jacko is not out, and she will not be out till next Wednesday, Thursday, depending on where your time zone is at. But we do have screenshots, and we also have the video, which you can check out the patch preview video, where I go over the entire Guilty Gear patch. This is just going to be talking solely and strictly about the units, which I know this is going to hopefully help some of you decide whether or not to summon. So we're going to jump in right to it, and we're going to head straight to Miss Dizzy. Dizzy's probably one of the most iconic Guilty Gear units inside of Epic 7. This is the one that has the biggest presence as far as probably the most known one because of just what she has done over the time inside of Epic 7. So this is a typical fan favorite, and a lot of people recommend her. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to cover her. First, we're going to talk about her skill set, and then we're going to talk about where she's used and how she's used today. So let's jump in and talk about skills. So first off, she is a Ice Mage Taurus. Yay. Okay, so skills. As far as skills go, her S3 is Emotional Gamma Ray. Unleashes a giant explosion to attack all enemies. The attack misses, but inflicts decreased speed, attack, and hit chance. This for 2 turns regardless. So outside of 15%, this skill will land these debuffs. And then the Soul Burn here grants an extra turn. This is a very interesting skill because it literally does no damage, but it inflicts debuffs. And these debuffs can be very vital depending on what you're doing and where you're doing it. You can use this unit in a lot of places just because of what is here on the S3. Now let's cover let's cover Gamma Ray now, which is her S2. So attacks all enemies with a powerful ray, extending the duration of debuffs by 1 turn, except for those which prevent the enemy from moving, before decreasing combat readiness. So the key word right here is except for those that prevent the enemy from moving, which I believe is the stuns and sleeps cannot be extended. But this case is typically used to keep her debuffs up and running in a longer sense. It's really cool, and you'll use this a lot. You'll use this trick a good bit in Abyss. You can use it in Halls of Trial or Hall of Trials. You can use it in PvP. But we'll get to that in just a second. Now her S1 is I use this to catch fish. Pretty clever title. Attacks all enemies with the power of magic with a 25% to stun to chance 25% each to stun for 1 turn. So meaning every person gets the 25% dice. It's not just 25% across the board, it's 25 per unit. Damage dealt increased on the debuffed enemies. So if an enemy is debuffed, it'll do increased damage. Now keep in mind, it is a 25% chance. So people would build her on counter trying to get this to tick off. You've seen people build her on Abyssal Crown trying to stack it up. But here's the thing. Right now, you have several heavy debuff cleansing units right now. So as far as PvP is concerned, this unit is going to be really niche to get off inside of PvP. Now, back in the day, this used to be a terrorist level unit. This was either you had Dizzy or you didn't, and you would win if you had her, and you wouldn't if you didn't. In this case, depending on where you're at and how you're playing, will determine if this unit will be good or great inside of PvP. When it comes to PvE, though, This unit can be used in a bunch of different places. You'll see people use her typically as Abyss, and typically we'll jokingly call her an Abyss Queen, because she is one of those units that you can just use and it helps out because everything here is good. You have the decrease speed, decrease attack, decrease hit chance. 3 things that you're gonna definitely want when fighting an Abyss, but this also isn't something that's just strictly to Dizzy. Another reason you kind of want her for some of the PvE applications is because you can keep these debuffs extended. Now, there's also another notable unit out there that this gets paired with that makes some very disgusting Abyss cheesing, and that is Kyrus. And occasionally you'll see her even stacked with Spectre Tenebria. And the reason is because you can stack the poisons and keep them extended here. Some people like to say they just would rather run Kyrus much faster than Dizzy, but some people also like running Dizzy for the fact of it helps extend if you know how to play around it. But right now, let's think about this in the aspect of general PvE. Do you really want to use this unit for Wyvern? Probably not. Can you use this unit to get you to Wyvern 13? Yes, I did. I used it from 11 to 12 to get me there, and then when I had the debuffs available, the runs were just too slow. But you could use this. I'm not saying you should, but you could use this. I did because it's just because I didn't have anything at that specific moment and I was trying to get there. As soon as I got it, I replaced it. When it comes to expeditions, there's not really an expedition that's gonna be good for her. Nothing that really screams out that's like, you should use it here, because if you're going to use it in Fire Expo, there are better options. And if you're going to use it in, let's say, Ice Expo, there's better options. When it comes to Labyrinth, you could use this in Labyrinth. I definitely had Dizzy around for quite a while, and let's be real, I mean, her overall 2D art is amazing. When it comes to Necro and Undine, which we'll go ahead and talk about while we're talking about Dizzy, I'll talk about their artifacts along the way. This is not an artifact that you need to be concerned with pulling. So when it comes to buying for powder or anything like that, here is her artifact. At max level, which is all we care about, is increases the caster's combat readiness by 20% after using an attack that targets all enemies, aka Dizzy's kit. This effect cannot be activated by a counterattack, dual attack, or extra attack. Anything fun that you would want to do with this Dizzy cannot be done. So basically, this artifact is meh. I'm sorry if you pull it early, or you pull a bunch of these and you have to go to pity. But unfortunately for Dizzy's case, that artifact isn't that good. I've seen some people use it in some weird tech builds, but overall, this isn't something you're really going to go fishing for. For those people who are curious about dupes and pulling dupes of Dizzy, is it necessary? Absolutely not. She does no damage. There's no point in you duping Dizzy. Attack percent for your team, yeah, well, that's cool. If you do a multi and you get 2 Dizzies, great, imprint it. But you have no need to go out and try to imprint this unit. Personally, I think if she had an effectiveness imprint, that would probably have been better. You could have done defense, HP, anything but attack, I think would have been better for Dizzy. I feel like this one's kind of out of touch. So as far as skilling her up, here is how you'll want to do this. If you're not going to build her on a full counter build, and I mean full counter build in the end, you will want to make sure you friendship 10 this unit, because you will take it to cooldown, because again, there's no point in going to the damage because it misses, which is very tragic. This should have been something else, I don't know. This could have been a one cost skill for all we care. And you'll want to at least get the cooldown here. Now, yes, if you're going to use this in some Gigabrain way idea, you probably would want to go through and do more damage, maybe the S1 max out. But for most people's uses, all you need is +3 in each. Now, again, friendship 10 this unit first so that you can spend the 3 on one of these 2 skills. If I was to say out of importance, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because I mean, they're both, you just kind of need to just get her 10 and then do this. Honestly, I would probably just go for the cooldown of the S3 to get started, and then when you hit Friendship 10, if you've got to spend molas on her, do it here. So that's going to take care of Dizzy. Let's go talk about the Banshee Queen, Baiken. Now, I'm going to state this here. This is probably going to be the number 2 choice for a lot of people, or first choice, depending on where you're at. I agree with you that Baiken is probably one of the most disgusting Banshee units to ever be brought in this game. But I do want to say this first and foremost so that people may want to change their opinion based off of what I've got to say. The general consensus when it comes to the community is that there is another unit that is non-limited that is just as good at doing Banshee one-shot. Euphine. Now, why we say this is because Euphine also has a little bit broader spectrum when it comes to the one-shot comps. You can also use Euphine in a normal Banshee hunt, as well as you can use her in one-shots. But you can also take her to Azmonak one-shot, Golem one-shot, and you can take her into Katie's one-shot, which therefore kind of makes the overall one-shot value much greater when you start looking at Euphine. But if we're going to talk about limited characters, and you absolutely are a Baiken fan, you use Baiken inside of Guilty Gear, let's talk about Baiken now, that you at least know that Euphine exists and she's a good option. And I will now explain why Baiken is better than Dizzy when it comes to, or better than my brain is mush after doing all these videos. Better than Euphine for Banshee. And that comes down to her skills. So, let's first off, she is a Earth Thief Scorpio. Not that that really matters, but it's there. This is also another Friendship 10 unit. But first, reason being is because of the skills. So, this is why Baiken is actually superior for Banshee. If in the grand scheme of things, you don't personally care and you're not about the absolute nth degree of min-maxing, here is what you need to know. With Baiken, Baiken is superior in Banshee because she's able to do the attack in 2 skills. Euphine has to do it in 1 skill. She has to take it from the chipped 30,000 HP to 0. So it's about 110,000, 120,000 HP is what the Banshee has. You will chip up to about 30,000 with Vivian, and then the rest has to be done in 1 click with Euphine. Baiken can do this in 2 skills because of the way her skills chain together. So, Baiken has, I am not even going to attempt to say this skill because I will absolutely botch it. And I'm not going to embarrass myself on a YouTube video that's going to be here forever trying to attempt this name. But her skill 2 attacks the enemy with expert swordsmanship with an 80% chance of each inflicting 3 bleed effects for 2 turns. 1 bleed effect ignores effect resistance, which is cool. A critical hit will grant an extra turn, so while Baiken needs to have a 100% crit chance, she only needs 85 crit chance to have a 100% crit chance on Banshee. Keep in mind, that's another reason why. So now, you will grant the extra turn because of the crit chance, which now will trigger. You will be below the threshold, so the Banshee would technically split here, but with the extra turn, you are now able to enter her 3rd. Which again, I know it's something Tenshi. Yaro Tenshi, I think is how that's actually said. That one's looks like a lot easier to say. Which delivers a deadly blow, detonating any bleed effects inflicted on the enemy at the end of the turn. A critical hit increases the combat readiness of all allies by 25%. Now, if you set up your one-shot properly, none of that crap matters. It's dead when it detonates. Most people, when they build their rage set Baikens, can kill it on her own without the bleed detonation. And I personally recommend you tune your Baiken to do that because 15% is a pain in the butt when it comes to Epic 7 and one-shots. You've already got the fact that you need to land Defense Break. Depending on how weak your Baiken is will determine if you need Target. Try to get it where it functions only on Defense Break. Now, why I say you need to Friendship 10 this unit first is because of this. You will never level her first skill. Under no circumstances if you are using this solely for Banshee. Now, if you would like to take her out into PvP, which I've seen some builds, it's really weird, it's really cool, disgustingly effective, believe it or not, at the way they use it, would you ever consider fully 15ing this unit? Most people, as I would, she is a Banshee slave forever. This is forever Banshee. Why? Because Baiken is literally amazing looking. Like, I mean, her art is truly fantastic, and I would rather have this. Plus, I was able to use another variation in my one-shot comps to make things up, and I was able to get it basically where it worked out for me, which is something you can do as well. Now, I will say this, imprints aren't necessary here, and you would need to think about this when tuning for one-shots, because if you do happen to pull in a 10-pull, double Baikens, you have an option here. You can use the team imprint, which will give everybody a little extra attack, but you need to make sure you tune your Vivians or whatever you're using for wave clear and chipping the Banshee down. You need to tune it to make sure it has this, or you can gain an extra 5.6% crit chance, and you'll need to make sure you have 85.6 crit chance because of this. So make sure that you can pick between one of these if you do end up imprinting it. Is it necessary to go out and imprint this? Absolutely not. If you would like to see what disgustingly horrible rage gear looks like, this is it. If you want to take a look here, you can see that I've got 18% effectiveness. I land enough bleeds, but I also do enough damage that I don't need my bleeds to clear Banshee one-shot. Crit damage is good. We've got good crit chance. She is faster than most people's Baikens because my team is tuned for Azmonak. So I had to do some tweaking here, and then defense and attack doesn't matter. Daydream Joker is the artifact for her. Now, speaking of her artifact, let's go talk about Baiken's artifact. This one is subjective to some people on whether or not to pull. Because this isn't a triple limited banner, which I am actually really disappointed about, and I talk about that inside the other video, I will not personally be going after any of these artifacts that I don't already own. So, Torn Sleeve, again, let's talk about it at max, because that's where really what you want to see. But you won't. Most of you won't pull these to max. So it has a 100% chance to inflict bleeding for 2 turns in a single attack. Now, what's cool here is this is an assassin artifact. Who is an assassin that we tell a lot of people early on to start using in Wyvern? Alexa. Alexa is an assassin that typically a lot of new players want to start using early on, because they may not have Clarissa or have the ability to level up Clarissa right away. But by having Alexa, which is a free unit given to you in the beginning of the game, some of you may even start with her through your selective summon. It's possible, I've seen them. That you might want to look at this if you're struggling with debuffs only, which typically in this case, Alexa's better off on Daydream Joker, but if it is a true, just you're struggling with debuffs, Torn Sleeve can be used in this case to gain an extra debuff. But most of you will probably only see this at plus 15, which will probably be 75% chance to inflict bleeding for 2 turns. Is this better than Junkyard Dog's percentage? Yes. But I would rather have the Warrior. Let's be real. So as far as pulling for Torn Sleeve or using your powder, I would not recommend doing this. Okay, next up is a lovely Valentine that is not Jacko. Next up, we are going to talk about Elphelt Valentine, which is a Fire Ranger Capricorn. Now, this is also another Friendship 10 unit. Depending on how you're going to play, if you're going to eventually take this into PvP, it's probably not a horrible idea to skill this up. For me, she is exclusively Katie's farmer right now. As you can see, I'm missing 2 pieces of gear just because I can't afford to take the sword and the ring off of the actual holders to make this build. But let's jump in and talk to you about her skill and her kit and her overall use. Magnum Wedding is her S3. Dispels 2 buffs from the enemy before shooting a bullet of love. Alright, so she's going to shoot me with her love gun. With a 100% chance to put them to sleep and decrease defense for 2 turns. Grants the caster an extra turn. This used to be a very terrifying S3 to have to deal with when it came to PvP. Now, obviously things have come around and she's not used as much, but yes, you could technically use her as an opener. She is quite fast. Mine's at 271, but specifically tuned for Katie's 13. This is actually how we do this. The sleep's cool, but here's the thing. Your extra attack is going to wake them back up. So this is kind of irrelevant, but you can use this in certain Guild War aspects and PvP aspects. As far as PvP or PvE is considered, outside of hunts, she has like no viability whatsoever. This is strictly a PvP unit. Sure, there might be something you can make it work with, but now let's talk about her S2. Her S2, Judge Better Half. Traps the enemy in a cake before attacking them with a cake-cutting blade, increasing attack of all allies for 2 turns. When the enemy is asleep, the key thing here, when the enemy is asleep, decreases defense of all enemies for 2 turns. Damage dealt is proportional to the number of debuffs inflicted on the enemy. Now, I have seen people use this as a cleave unit, and it actually was surprisingly effective during its time. Now, can you get away with this today? Probably not, but it is technically possible. I have seen them cleave with this, and it do a crap ton of damage. What's cool about this is how we get our attack buff inside of Katie's 13. As well as it does help to have the defense break if there was multiple enemies, but in this case, everything is single target, so it's kind of void. But this is what we definitely want. We want to get our attack buff from here. As far as her S1, which is Barrage, fires a barrage of bullets at the enemy with a 65% chance to make them able to be buffed for 1 turn, and I believe that goes up to 75%. Yes, it does. It goes up to 75% chance if you mola this. Now, I did Friendship 10 this unit, so I did not come this far. This is kind of debatable, depending on how you find your value inside of Elphelt. While the debuff is nice, it's not necessary for anything as far as hunts are concerned. When it comes to PvP, yeah, it's helpful. It can be annoying because it can stop somebody from being buffed. But again, as we talk about with Dizzy, we do have an immense amount of cleansers and out there right now. You know, you've got ML Koeric, you've got Dilibet out there who can instantaneously cure most all of this crap. So, has she lost value? Yes. Can she still be used? Yes. You just got to know, and you got to slip it in right at the end in order to. I'm sure that's what she said. Joke. I can't. But you will have to figure a way to get her into your draft without them hard countering it at the end. So as far as imprints go, I did imprint my Elphelt, and the reason I ended up slating my Elphelt was because it helped with my overall damage. I couldn't get the damage calculator to give me the exact number I needed, and it still isn't fixed from the last time I checked. So I ended up using a slate as a gamble to see if it would help fix my damage issue. So for Katie's 13, I did end up slating Elphelt, and it helped. It got me through that small bit of damage I was missing over the 3 units. Do you have to necessarily do it? No. If you tune your units just right, you probably won't need this imprint. But if you do happen to pull 2 Elphelts pretty early on, for whatever reason, if you do a multi and you do get them, sure, you can definitely use the team imprint. Should you use the concentration imprint? Probably not. Especially if you're doing, honestly, I think I would just leave it as a team imprint. I don't think I would. I can get effectiveness fairly easy on her. So no, I probably would not I would probably leave this for the team. All right, now, probably the best artifact out of all of them is Elphelt's artifact. Now, this is the catch-22 here. If you don't want Elphelt, the Ranger artifact is Elphelt's. So, this is where I'm at least probably going to buy a bottle and buy the artifact from the powder shop. Miss Confille is a very awesome Ranger artifact. Right now, the main unit I use that uses this artifact is Cerise, and it's quite annoying with a unit as fast as she is to have this artifact on her. Also, if you're PvPing, you wouldn't use Song of Stars. You would probably use this to keep as many defense breaks up as possible. While Target is great and it's a cheap trick to increase extra damage, this is probably still what you would use. Or you might end up using a cleaving artifact of some sort, something like Portrait of Savior if you were going to try to go like complete degenerate here. But check this out. Has a 60% chance to decrease defense of the enemy for 1 turn after a single attack. So only on single attacks will this work, which is her S1. Which is why Cerise has such a viable use of this artifact. Any ranger that has great single target abilities, this can be used on. This effect cannot be activated by a counterattack, dual attack, or extra attack, aka no fun. They don't want you to have any fun in building a counter Elphelt, which I would totally have done if that text did not exist. If that text wasn't there, I'd totally build a counter degenerate version of this just to do it 100%. So this is the artifact out of all of them. If you've got to spend powder on it, this is it. This is the one to get. out of all of them. And that's even including Jackos. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna now hop over to another screen, and we're gonna talk about Jacko through imagery. All right, so here we go. Hopefully this is viewable to you guys. I've got it tuned up and set up for everything else. So here is Jacko Valentine with her in-game art. As I said, it was totally gonna be, her mask was totally gonna be in her hand. I told you guys. Okay, so she is a fire warrior. And I know probably a lot of you are going, oh, great, another fire warrior. That's right, Soul's a fire warrior too, but hey, guess what? Now we've got a actual summonable fire warrior. Eh? Okay, so let's check her out and go into greater detail of her. Now, we did go over this inside the patch preview, but I do want to make sure that we talk about it here because this is kind of the who to summon for unit. So attack is overall pretty decent. Looks like she's gonna have okay health. Speed is normal for a warrior. Defense looks normal. The crit chance is actually looks higher than normal, as well as the crit damage looks a bit higher. So I think Tauruses have. It's been a while since I've seen a Taurus warrior, or Taurus warrior. So her imprint release, which is her team imprint, is effectiveness. Depending on what you're doing with her, this might be useful. I would probably say if your effectiveness units didn't have it baked in, this is kind of pointless. And I would rather see the imprint concentration, which is attack percent, which is very, very good. Okay, so as far as skills go, let's talk about skill number 2, which is Trick or Treat. This one was an interesting skill. At the start of the battle, grants Chain of Cryon to the ally in the back row for 2 turns. After an ally attacks when the target is stunned, increases the combat readiness of all allies by 15%. This effect is activated after all of the attacker's effects have occurred. This effect can only be activated once every 3 turns. So what they're saying is anything that happens inside of artifacts, whatnot, the CR push is after that. The combat readiness is the way I'm understanding it is once the combat readiness will happen after everything else. So Chain of Cryon is after attacking has a 25% chance to stun the target for 1 turn, and it cannot be dispelled. Would you like to know what this is? For those of you who are very curious and have no idea what that is, let's go take a look at another artifact that you may or may not have recognized. If you're new, you probably won't know what this is. Let's just go ahead and put this here. What is that? Right there. Has a 24% chance to stun for after 1 turn. Stun for 1 turn after attacking. She's got Abyssal Crown baked into a passive. As a warrior. Help us all. Okay, back to this. So this debuff will get put to the bottom left unit, which is the bottom one. So if you got the 4 squares, it's that one down here is where it will go. So let that sit in the back of your mind. That's Abyssal Crown. Better. Okay? Next up, I was really disappointed that this was her skill. It was not the super OP looking one from XRD, but hey, at least it doesn't look as bad as it does inside Guilty Gear. The truth. At least it looks better. Good job, Smilegate. You one-upped this drive, guys. All right, so here we go. So the S3 increases attack of the caster for 2 turns before attacking the enemy by swallowing them with a jack-o'-lantern. When the enemy is defeated, grants an extra turn, penetrates the target's defense by 50% when the target has a debuff damage dealt increases. So, here we go. This is the trend of the game. Everything is pinning defense. Why? Because what do they hear people talk about? Everything is so darn tanky. So now everything's starting to pin defense. This is the cop-out. I'm all for it, I get it. But also, do y'all realize what that text right here is? Right there? That's basically Luna's exclusive equipment. When an enemy is defeated, she is granted an extra turn on one of her exclusive equipments. This is dangerous. So I can definitely see her being a unit that can definitely deal damage as a good... You're gonna have to time where this unit comes up. Not necessarily it's the opener unit, but this is a finisher unit so that she can take another turn. And then the pen defense is just a cop-out, but hey, free damage is free damage, right? Okay, now as far as her S1, which is Throw Servant, this is where I was pretty sure we were going to have the little minions come around and she was going to have some interaction with this because it's part of her kit inside of Guilty Gear, so this made sense that this was going to come here. So, attacks the enemy with a servant with a 30% chance to stun for 1 turn. After attacking on the caster's turn, when the target has a debuff, activates Dust Attack. And Dust Attack is attacks the enemy by throwing them into the air, granting stealth to the caster for 1 turn. So, not only do we have now a warrior that has Abyssal Crown, but now has stealth. So for some of you guys, that's Guiding Light, if you really want to talk about it. Okay. This is fine. Is this going to be an OP PvP unit? Probably not. Is this going to be something cool and used for a while? Yeah, we're probably going to abuse some of this stuff for a while, but I do not see this thing being long-term OP. I don't see this being dizzy level of terrorist throughout for like 6-7 months. Like, it took several units for them to tame her down. But I definitely see this, I could definitely see this being interesting along the way. But again, I see between these 3 skills, I see absolutely 0, and I mean 0, PvE viability for anything. So if you're a newer player and you're expecting to use this unit in exclusively PvE, I don't really see the value. Now, here's the thing. If you're a Jackos, if you really love Jacko, you're just like, I absolutely am in love with her look and you need to have her, sure, use her wherever. I'm not gonna tell you not how to play your game. Is she gonna be great for it? Probably not. But will you make her work? Probably so. But there's nothing in her kit that screams high PvE value. Again, with any type of gear, you can eventually make something work. It's just, her kit screams PvP, and really exclusively PvP. And the last thing we want to talk about is Jacko's artifact. She's a warrior. Remember this. So there are many, which I will show you in just a minute. I will show you the kings of the jungle when it comes to warriors. And again, it's all going to come down to playstyle. But just remember, she's a warrior. So there are many fighting artifacts here. We're going to read it at max because that's all that really matters here. Because it's pretty disappointing. Her artifact reads, increases effectiveness of all allies by 10%. If the target has a debuff, when the caster attacks with a single attack, increases the damage up to 24%. This artifact skill can only be applied to 1 hero within the team. So just like things like Symbol of Unity, Proof of Valor, this cannot have multiple copies in a team. So, that being said, remember, Portrait of Savior has 20% damage and is a universal artifact and is 4 stars, and you can farm indefinite amounts of them inside the story. Okay? Effectiveness is a BS stat to add into artifacts. Okay? We're agreeing still? All right. While the damage is cool for a debuff target, let's go talk about the kings of the jungle. Okay, warrior. Warriors have a crap ton of options, depending on how you want to play. Not that these are the options that you should be using, but we're just going to talk about a few that a lot of warriors tend to use, depending on their play styles. Border Coin, a non-limited artifact. A lot of people use this to increase attack and speed. You have, some people use the Rim artifact as a way of gaining crit chance. Okay. That's a pretty popular one. But again, that one's limited, so that's a little touchy. But it's one you'll see a lot of warriors running. Again, another limited one that you don't see as often, but starting to see a little bit is the stun chance, at least here. But I totally wouldn't talk about this because we're talking about King of Jungles. Draco Plate, another limited artifact. But this one is great for damage. When you want to smack something really, really hard, Draco Plate is definitely one of those big options, because that's 30 crit damage, and that goes on top of your 350 max crit damage. In all testings proves it goes over the cap. I use this to cheat my way up to cap most of the time because I can't get up there that often. So I'm like, please, anything over 300, I'll take it, and then I pop this on it. Now, also, this reduces damage dealt because of the critical hit reduction. So this artifact is a definite big warrior artifact to have. Like I said, these are some of the kings of the jungle. Now, I could potentially argue Durandal a little bit, depending on how you're wanting to play and on your theory crafting of what you're trying to do. Not saying it's the best, not saying it's the worst, but this is technically still another one. We can go into a absolute nightmare of an artifact, depending on what you're doing, is Merciless Glutton with a single target. When using single target attack, increases the damage dealt by 16% when defeating the enemy, increases the combat readiness of all allies except for the caster. Now, doesn't that sound a little bit better than Jacko's artifact? Yeah. Now, as far as the stats, though, sure, it's more damage dealt, but this one increases the combat readiness of all your allies. Is this technically the one to use? No, there's still others. Sigurd's Scythe is another massive, non-limited artifact that a lot of people love using. When the caster's health is 50% or less, increases the attack by 25% and absorbs 50% of the damage as health. Another OP artifact. Uberis's Tooth is another one that you're seeing a lot of people use right now with like Ha Young. Has a 100% chance when it's maxed to inflict additional damage after a single attack, and it's proportional to the caster's max attack. Now, is that technically better on Ha Young over her? Yes, but again, I'm showing you that there are many options out there. If you're trying to keep things cleansed off, Crimson Seed's technically an option. When we go into degenerate technology, this is definitely one of them. As health decreases, increases health, speed, and attack. This technically could work. Hellcutter, if you really want to be a degenerate, this is another one that could definitely and totally work. And then, again, depending on what you're doing with her, I wouldn't see Sepulchrum, nor I see Strat Gauntlet. But let's go talk about a couple universal artifacts really quick, just to drive the point home further. Symbol of Unity, not that I know why you'd want to use this, but this could technically be better than that. And then, where is it? If you really want to, Warhorn. Again, not that I think she's the great candidate for it, but it's still better than her current option. And if you just want to be tanky as heck, you could still technically use this. So under no circumstances do I think her artifact is a must pull, must spin powder, or anything like that. So now I'm going to wrap up with soul, just so that if you guys want to know, do you want to imprint your soul or not? Because this is going to come down to those currencies do look slightly expensive. The update isn't out yet, so I don't know exactly how hard it is to get them, but everybody's guaranteed a soul, so I just want to bring this up just to talk to you guys about Soul Badguy, for if you want to look at it, grinding out the extra currency to get him to see if he's worth it for you. So personally, I haven't been able to do anything with Soul yet. Never got around to it. He's a cool, his look is cool. I've always wanted to do something with him. I just never got around to it in the entire year I've been playing. Because as of, I think, the 1st of April, I will have had the Guilty Gear units on my account for a year. But let's talk about his kit real quick to see if this is something you want to look at, investing into. Tyrant Rave version beta. Attacks with a strong punch, dispelling all buffs before making them unbuffable for 2 turns. Damage dealt increased proportional to the enemy's max health. After attacking, inflicts additional damage regardless whether the attack hits. Pretty cool. It's a pretty cool tech for his S3. It's actually a really long S3. And he's also got the most cancerous soul burn in the game, which is ignores effect resistance. I love this. I love that when it's 10. 10 souls ignores effect resistance. Such a great path. Such a great soul burn. All right, Volcanic Viper. When an enemy uses a non-attack skill, increases combat readiness of the caster by 20%. Gains 20 fighting spirit when suffering attack that targets all allies. Activates Volcanic Viper against the attacker. This effect cannot be activated by a counter attack, dual attack, or extra attack. Each effect can only be activated once every 2 turns. Volcanic Viper, which is acquires 2 souls, launches the enemy into the air, and attacks them repeatedly, inflicting silence for 2 turns. Damage dealt increased proportional to the enemy's maxed health. So you're taking this into tankier units is typically what it looks like you want to do here. And obviously increases damage dealt. And then Gun Flame, which is his S1, attacks the enemy with Pillars of Fire. Damage dealt increase when the enemy isn't buffed. Activates Roman Candle when the caster's fighting spirit is at 100 after attacking. Cannot be triggered by a counterattack. Roman Candle consumes all fighting spirit, extends the duration of buffs granted to the caster by 1 turn before granting the caster an extra turn. So people typically tend to use Soul for something like farming Golem. People used him in PvP some. I've seen him be used in Guild Wars. People bring him out as a meme in RTA. He can still have value. So is he worth your hard-earned currency? It comes down to how much time and how much energy do you want to put into farming out everything else. Me personally, I'm going to Gigabrain this and figure out how to get mine triple S without having a duplicate Soul. So that means I'm going to leave 1 left in the shop. I'm going to have me a max level Soul finally. And then next year, I'll probably have a max level Soul +1. Because I'm going to have the dupe. Which I really think this needs to be changed. As far as Soul's artifact, let's go ahead and cover this as well. It's an artifact that you can farm up. It is Junkyard Dog, which is right... I'm blind. Junkyard Dog. Alright, no, it's 5-star artifact. I'm blind. Okay, so at max, it has a 50% chance to burn for 2 turns after using a basic skill. Now, this typically was the #1 choice before Cradle of Life got buffed, which was Sigurd's artifact. But if you are struggling with debuffs inside of Wyvern 13, this is the go-to artifact to start with your Clarissa. Yes, I recommend this over Daydream Joker on Clarissa because that basic attack is the S1 of Clarissa, so you are trying to stack as many debuffs as possible. So this was the go-to before Cradle of Life got buffed. But since it's been buffed, Cradle of Life is technically better than this. I still plan to max mine out. That's going to definitely be my plan here this year. And just to have it done and to say it's complete. Other than that, most people don't need this, and yes, you can technically use Daydream Joker over this, and again, your mileage may vary depending upon where you want to go. So this has been an overview of all of the units. Now, here's what I will say in closing. Is there a must pull out of this? It truly will come down to this. Where are you in your account? How new are you in your account? What are you actually looking for here? Are you looking for a PvE unit? Are you looking for a hunt unit? Are you looking for something with some PvP prowess for later on? What is your goals in the account? While I can give you my suggestions based off of whatever you guys ask in the comment section, I truly can't tell you guys which one to actually summon for. That's going to have to be a decision you have to make. Dizzy's great for Abyss. She definitely has a vote of confidence for me there. She's great in PvP. I've used her in PvP, especially Guild Wars more than anything else. RTA is a little bit harder to deal with her in. As far as Baiken's concerned, Banshee Queen, 100%, the easiest one-shot you will ever do. Literally, it's almost impossible not to get this thing started within a few months of playing Epic 7. So if you're really wanting to get into the counterattack, she is definitely the easiest barrier of entry to do. When it comes to Elphelt, you need to look at this as more of a long-term investment because you will need to have a 271 speed Elphelt with bulk in order to get her inside of the Katie's 13 one-shot. If you're going to take her outside in PvP, she will want some bulk because you don't want her to instantaneously get blown up. But you can also get her much faster than the Katie's version, and if you decide to go the crazy degenerate route with the Cleave version, it's totally possible as well. As far as Jacko is concerned, it's going to be too hard to say this right now, whether she is a must-pull or not. I think she's going to be a fun unit to use inside of PvP, especially Guild Wars and RTA. But depending on how you build her, I can already see the counters forming pretty easily around this. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to go out and have fun with her. At least in my aspect. And as far as you guys with Soul, I'm going to let that be your choice on whether you need to triple S him or not. I'm going to, because I'm going to try to come up with the king of memes for this. It's going to be fun. I'll figure something out. So I'll do my best in the comments to help you guys out over the Guilty Gear collab and try to help get you guys the most information I can in what way or another inside the comments to help maybe give you advice to summon or not. Just remember, not everything is mandatory. Nothing is... I'm not forcing you to pull on anything. We do have a lot of stuff coming on. I've released 2 videos today alone that has a ton of information about a ton of summoning stuff coming. But I'll still give you my opinion at face value. But it's still ultimately your decision on what to pull on. Remember that. Look at what your account is and look at how valuable is this to you. If you love the character design, it's a must pull for you. I'm going to be real. Don't hesitate to don't be in that point where you're going 6 months down the road. Your experience is worse because you really wanted to have that unit in your account. If you've got the resources for it, limited units are just that. They come around once a year, and they may not ever come back. In this case, it looks like it's a very good chance we're going to constantly see Guilty Gear here. But that's going to be my 2 cents for your guys and on who to summon for. If you absolutely must have one, my tie for number 1 is Dizzy and Baiken. Number 2 is probably Jacko. Number 3 is Elphelt. And then if you want Soul, go get him. It's energy. There's no reason not to. Let's be real. So thank you guys for watching. And again, I really want to say thank you for all the support you guys have been giving me over here on YouTube, and it really does mean a lot to me. I know a lot of these videos recently have been extremely long, and I will try to do better. It's a lot of information to get out to you guys, and I want to make sure it comes out as cleanly as possible. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.